Welcome to New at NAMT, the next wave of musical theater writers, a series dedicated to spotlighting the emergent voices in musical theater. Every interview provides a unique glimpse into the creative minds behind the next big musicals. So whether you're a producer, theater lover, or even simply curious about the future of musical theater, New at NAMT offers a front row seat to a new generation of writers. Today, on New at NAMT, we'll be talking with the winners of the Musical Theater Songwriting Challenge for high school students alongside their program mentors. Presented by the National Endowment for the Arts, NEA, in partnership with the National Alliance for Musical Theater, NAMT, in collaboration with Concord Theatricals, Disney Theatrical Productions, the NMPA S.O.N.G.S Foundation, the Musical Theater Songwriting Challenge is a unique educational and professional development opportunity for high school students to write and showcase a song that could be in a musical. This past year, 7 winning songs by 8 student songwriters were selected to win the Songwriting Challenge. Those winning student songwriters traveled from all across the country to New York City in June 2024 for Winners Weekend, where their songs were fully orchestrated and performed live in a concert by Broadway performers. You can still watch the concert at home by heading over to the namt.org/challenge and see the first ever performance of these songs for yourself. Over the next little bit, we'll talk with the winners about their songs and the full Musical Theater Songwriting Challenge experience. It's time to lower the lights, raise the curtain, and LX1, go on New at NAMT. I am your host, Jean-Paul Yovanoff from Musical Theater Radio, and joining me each week is a rotating cast of Songwriting Challenge Program mentors as our co-hosts. Before we get to today's interview, let's welcome this week's co-hosts, Joey and Teresa. Hello, how are the both of you doing?
Hi, good to be here.
Awesome to be here.
Yeah, it's great. It is a gray day outside, which makes my dog depressed, which then makes me feel like I am going to reflect that energy. But I'm like, no, I'm not going to give in to my dog's energy.
Yes, do not let your dog's energy possess you. That's a good life lesson.
Yes, starting right there with life mantras.
All right. Now, before we start talking to our guests, can you both tell us a little bit about yourselves? You know, your relationship with NAMT and your involvement in the Musical Theater Songwriting Challenge. Teresa, let's start with you.
Yeah, so last year I was featured in the NAMT Midday Cabaret and I got to share some of my new work. I also orchestrated 3 of the songs for the challenge, and one of those songs was Isabella and Maya's. In general, I'm just a big fan of NAMT's support of musical theater writers. So happy to be here.
Fantastic. And Joey, who are you?
I've known about NAMT, have been involved with NAMT over many years now, and being a musical theater writer myself, NAMT is such a great family, great platform for new writers, very generous. And so one of the more recent things that I did, in addition to being a program mentor with the Songwriting Challenge, was I showcased at one of the festivals recently, and the Songwriters Showcase, and presented music from one of my shows called In Pieces.
Now that we know who our co-hosts are, let's get to the interview. Today, we are thrilled to be speaking with Isabella Wynn and Maya Johnson, the team behind one of this year's songwriting winning songs, Live Before Life's Gone, from the musical Less Than Perfect. Live Before Life's Gone is a prologue introducing the 2 main characters, Jazz and Char, as they meet early in the morning at a coffee shop before school. Isabella and Maya, welcome to New at NAMT.
Hi, we're so excited to talk with you today about all things Songwriting Challenge in NAMT. Thank you so much for having us.
I'd love for the both of you to introduce yourselves to the listeners and tell us a little bit more about your winning song, Live Before Life's Gone. Isabella, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, so I'm Isabella Wynn. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I go to Mount St. Mary Academy in Little Rock, Arkansas.
And I'm Maya Johnson, she, they, and I also go to Mount, and we're calling in from my house in Little Rock.
Yeah, from the bedroom.
Yep.
Isabel and Mike, can you tell us about your involvement with the songwriting challenge leading up to Winners Weekend, and how did you attend? How did you like attending online challenge events and workshops, and how do they help you when you're writing your songs from draft one to draft two?
Yeah, so that's such a loaded question. There's so much to unpack. So, I mean, the whole thing was just so awesome to get so much feedback on an area that we've like never worked on before. We've never like written musicals, written songs like this before. So it was really cool to get all this feedback and all this help. So the first workshop we really did was the January one with Rob Rokicki, who wrote the Lightning Thief musical. And that was really cool for me personally because the Lightning Thief musical was one of the like two or three musicals that kind of got me through COVID when all of that crazy stuff was happening. And I actually got to see him in person when I went to Interlochen summer camp, because I did a musical theater camp up there that previous summer before all the challenge stuff. And I got to see him for the first time. So taking his workshop was really, really cool. Um, Especially just because he gave us so many things to work with. It was really cool to hear him talk about, his writing process and how he developed each character's genuine like voices and language and like how they spoke and how they thought. Specifically, I remember he talked about it was like the song was Good Kid, and he talked about like what he changed and how he changed each draft, showed us different versions of it. And there was one specific part he was looking at like one of his first drafts, and I just remember him going like, "No, no, bad, horrible. Who says that?" And it was just like it was so cool to see and hear like a professional feel kind of embarrassed about their work and kind of cringe at it and realize like, we're not the only people. It's not just like a new writer thing to feel imposter syndrome and to like go, oh, that was really not my best work. Let's fix it. It just kind of made the whole thing so real and it kind of made us go like, okay, we're not actually like awful for feeling like our writing is bad. It's a kind of universal writer thing.
Yeah. And then the next workshop we did was actually with Joey. And we were super excited because we had kind of like obsessed and become major fans of his musical In Pieces.
Yeah.
And I think that workshop really gave us great information to apply to kind of all of our writing as a whole because we were learning about like both lyrical and kind of instrumental hooks in that one. And we've been able to kind of implement it into lyrics and melodic lines, and it's helped us make our musical more like unique to our style and like stylize it how we want. And it's also helped us really characterize different people with different hooks and instruments and add like specific elements of the plot have be emphasized via the music. And then the last one we got to do was a song share. So after we'd kind of worked on all of these things, adding them into our song and thinking about how we could rework it, we got to really take in a little bit more information that I think really helped us push our song kind of over the edge of like being the best it could be for us at the time, which helped us implement a lot of specificity and intentionality with all of our each choice and each lyric within the song because I think that was one of our big fine tuning moments is we literally went through line by line after reworking a ton of stuff, after adding a bunch of instruments, and we were like, what lyrics need to change? And like it just really helped us add a new layer of meaning to it, which was really important because it was the first song of the show, and we had to make everything very intentional to better introduce the characters to the audience and set up the entire show.
So, did I hear you correctly that you have not written musicals before this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we have not.
What? That is incredible. You two are so talented. Like, that makes no sense to me. Wow. Well, it's great. I loved orchestrating it, but I gotta say that you made it pretty easy because you already had some ideas for parts, and the song itself was just so melodic, and there was already a lot of like strong hooks. So all I had to do was just like sparkle a little bit. It was easy peasy, and that's because of your vision. What
We appreciate
was
the extra
yeah.
sparkle. It needed the
Sparkle,
extra
sparkle.
sparkle.
What was your process like when you were originally writing the song?
Yeah, so when Maya and I started writing like the whole of Less Than Perfect, we had never written a musical before. We'd never written with each other. And so we kind of took the standpoint of like, okay, let's divvy it up. I'll take like this song and this song and this song, and you'll take this song and this song and this song, and we'll write them separately and then like regroup eventually and figure out, and then work together. But so this was still in our like pre-writing, divvying it up kind of phase. And so I had taken Live Before Life's Gone, and I was actually at Interlochen at that summer camp when I wrote this, and I just had these like random ideas, random lyrics, and like melodies that like just hit me as I was like walking from workshop to workshop throughout the day, and went, and they just kept coming, and so I went, okay. And so I finally sat down in like, they have practice cabins like outside because the whole thing is outside. And it was like 90 degrees in Michigan in the summer. And I just sat down in this practice cabin and just cranked out this song in like 4 hours. And I remember I recorded it on like a really crappy voice memo. And like, it 90 degrees. So I had like a neck fan on. And I remember I had it on like high blast. And it was like, all the outside noises. And I remember recording this and sending it to Maya and going, I don't know if you can hear anything.
When she sent it to me, I just kind of laughed because it was great bones for a song, but it was kind of just a weird situation to receive a voice memo.
But I remember sending this voice memo and it just had like the whole first draft in it. And like a lot of it, like the bones have stayed. But it was just horrible audio quality. But I wanted it to be an introduction to Shar and Jazz and their relationship because it is like the first thing we had just said we wanted the audience to see and like get from them. And so I really wanted it to be like, okay, who are they as people? And then what is their relationship to each other? So there's a lot of like playful dialogue in there, like back and forth, like best friend banter that like we have personally in our lives. But it was so interesting on that first voice memo of like me in that cabin with the fan in the background and me talking to myself and laughing at myself out in the middle of the woods in a cabin.
Yeah, and so that was kind of my first introduction to the song was the random voice memo I got sent one day in the summer. And after that, we kind of didn't touch it for a while until our drama teacher sent us the NAMT competition. And then we were like, well, what's one of the most complete songs we have that is like, because we had a couple silly ones and we had a lot of them that weren't done at the time, but that was kind of one of our more complete ones. And we were like, well, it's the opening, so it's a good one to start with. Like, if anything, we want to be really strong right off the bat. It's the first song in the show. So then we kind of just got together in her room, which is where we do a lot of work for this musical. It's usually her on the floor with blankets and me at the piano going, what do I do?
Yeah.
We got together in her room and spent many, many hours, probably until like 1 in the morning or something, fleshing out like the bones of the piano because that's kind of both of our strongest area. The orchestration, we're just guessing.
Yes.
And then we spent a lot of time fixing a couple of the lyrics that we liked, changing a couple rhymes, adding some harmonies and fixing them so that we liked how they sounded together more. And then after we got feedback from Songshare and got some of our, workshop information in there, we reworked it again and sat through adjusting even more things. And I have some recording equipment at my house because my dad was in a band. So he came to my house and got onto Logic Pro and we're like, okay, let's try to add some instruments, I guess. We know a little bit of music theory and have played piano for a while. And it was a lot of just trial and error because we didn't really know what we were doing. And so we just put something down and go, does this sound good? And some of it we'd be like, yes. And some of it we'd be like, I need to hear it about 4 more times to see if it does.
Yeah.
And it was pretty much just all of this throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. And then
Hoping for the best.
me staying up at my house on this little keyboard and then sending it to Isabel and going, what do I need to change?
Yeah.
Submissions for the Songwriting Challenge are songs that one day might be part of a musical, or like your song, are from a musical currently being worked on. Can you tell the listeners a little bit more about your musical, Less Than Perfect, and what has the process been like developing your show?
Oh, it's a doozy. It was definitely a big project to like jump headfirst into. But so on a very, very basic level, because I don't want to talk your ears off, Less Than Perfect is a contemporary musical written by teens and for teens because we need more musicals for teenagers. Like we were kind of just aiming to write something that like would be good for high schools to perform. So like, we have a lot of female characters. I think 8 out of our 10 named
Yeah.
characters can be played by like female identifying actors if they want.
Or female representing,
Yeah,
or
female representing, whatever it is.
Mhm.
And only 2 of them are guys because there are generally a more women in theater in comparison to guys. And it's a high school romance about 2 best friends who are based off of us, and how they and the people around them are trying to figure out who they are and where they belong without compromising either of the two. And it just kind of calls to some of the harder things in high school that a lot of people don't tend to think about anymore because they're past it. But when you're in the middle of it, it feels like a lot. And it kind of pokes fun at some of the things that seem really major but really aren't. And it dramatizes how things can seem really massive, but it also really points out how people can struggle in high school, but it can also not be the end of their story, and there's a lot more beyond that. And we've been working on it now for 2 years in November, I think.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, we had our like the 2-year birthday, 2-year anniversary
Yes.
in November. But yeah, so it started, we've told this story like 1,000 times. It's one of our favorite stories.
And we will keep telling
We
it.
will keep telling the story. So it started all by accident. We actually do choir together, and we went on this random trip in our sophomore year to sing in the background of this like NYU students short film. And it was like out again in the middle of the woods. I don't know what the theme is with woods and writing this show, but we went out in like the middle of the woods, and it was like winter and it was November and it was really cold for no reason because that's how Arkansas weather is. It's either really hot or really cold. And we were like freezing, and in order to like not go crazy or freeze, we just decided to, as the theater kids we are, make up backstories for these background characters that were completely unimportant and that should not have been there at all. And thus was born Shar and Jazz. And so like on our way back, we were talking about like, their little love story and all these things, and we went, "Oh, that might be a fun musical." Not that either of us had written anything like a musical before, but we just went, "Huh, that might be fun." And then started like actually talking about it. And then Maya sent me a song, and like just a month or two later, and they're like, "Hey, I just thought of this like, last night for like, Shar and like one of the beginning songs of the show." And I went, "Oh, you're serious about this like I am." And I went, "Oh, okay, so we could like actually write a musical about this." And so then we started writing. And yeah.
And we didn't really know what we were doing.
No, not
We
at all.
still don't know what we're doing.
No.
But a lot of our like kind of systemized way of doing it was we have about 1,000 Google Drive things, specifically one
Big
giant
doc.
Google Doc.
Yes.
That will forever be called Holy Water Side Characters
That was the
because
name of the short film.
that was the name of the short film. And it was like we spent our 3-hour drive to and from a theater competition.
Yes.
Fleshing out a bunch of the plot,
Mhm.
and then we kind of divvied up the songs as we said earlier. And then it was kind of like we got to a point where we had both written some songs on our own and sent
Yeah.
them back and forth, and then we were like, well, we need more plot to get the rest of these songs done, so we went in and made the most detailed plot outline we possibly could.
Yeah, like scene breakdown, like song breakdown, what happened in the songs, what each chorus and verse and bridge should kind of be about. And then there's dialogue in there too. We have like a few scenes, some of our like favorite lines in the show that aren't written yet are in that doc and will be in there someday.
Mhm. And then we kind of just we learned how to collaborate more throughout the process because at the beginning it was
Yes.
very, I do this, you do this,
Mhm.
we'll figure it out later. And then as we got more into it, it became more, hey, we should get together and we should work on this, we should plan this.
Yeah.
I have like a basic idea for this song, but I
Mhm.
can't finish it. Let's get together and like work it out. So we got more collaborative, and we've just learned how to kind of communicate with each other more. I think not only just like for the musical, but like as friends, which I think has helped us really dive into like the harder, more detailed parts of the musical for both of us.
Yeah, and like we started trying to write separately when it was more like the individual songs or like a duet, but then we got to like all of the big group numbers were left, and we went, "I don't want to write this by myself." And we both went, "Oh, neither of us want to do this by ourselves. Guess we kind of have to do it together." And then it became a really fun collaboration process. But it's really cool because we both have opposite kind of strengths
Yeah.
in writing music, which is funny because like you're a really good lyricist, but Maya's a really good lyricist
I'm
in
very
like
metaphorical.
abstract, and I'm a very literal lyricist.
Mhm.
And so it helps give us like both sides. And then
Hmm.
same thing for like melodic lines and harmonies and things like that. It's just we have completely like opposite strengths that really go together really well.
And it helps us make sure that nothing is too much of one thing. So, like, if I go really metaphorical with one song, for example, Isabella will come in and be like, well, we need to break this down more so we can explain it basically to the audience so they can absorb it. And if Isabella goes really literal with the song, I'm like, well, we need to not give away like this specific detail. We should make this more like you have to look for it a little bit more. So I think it's really helped us, again, make our own style.
Yeah.
And just, it's become a really cool balance and become very dynamic, I think, because
Yeah.
of that.
It's like our own style, but together.
Yeah.
I love hearing about your writing process and also your discovery of writing together because so much of it is very familiar, is very relatable, being a writer and also the questions, the insecurities, the imposter syndrome, all of that is so real and at times doesn't go away. I mean, you can have huge hit musicals and the second that you're staring at a blank page again, you're like, how do I write a musical? And you have to just kind of go back to those lessons that you learned along the way when you were writing your last one, or in this case, you're writing your first one. You're learning the importance of outlining and balancing hooks and subtext and metaphor and all of that. So it's so much fun to hear that. Let's talk about Winners Weekend, which was so fun. I miss you all so much. What was the highlight of the weekend for each of you? And you don't, I know it's not, you don't have to say me. I'm just kidding.
Well, I mean, I feel like the obvious one for both of us is studio day.
Yeah.
But
Oh
I
man.
think one thing that really stuck out to me just going to the whole weekend from like a writer's perspective because we're both performers as well.
Yeah.
So it was really cool to like see everything and be like, "Oh, I can be like solely a writer this weekend and look at everything from that perspective." Was I really enjoyed seeing Three Houses, which was the off-Broadway show that we got to go see.
Mhm.
Because it was a Dave Malloy show.
Yes.
And I love Dave Malloy.
He's so fun.
Because as someone who writes very metaphorically, his shows are very interesting to me, and I find a sense of like, oh, I kind of want to write like that in a lot of the stuff he's written. I'm doing one of the songs from one of his shows for like my college pre-screens. But so I really enjoyed getting to see that show because I really like how kind of intellectual a lot of the off-Broadway shows are. And as a writer, it was just cool seeing it because it was like a thrust stage into the audience. And it was just really cool getting to be like, oh, I want to write something like this. And oh, I understand why he did that. Just going in because I was so in writer mode that whole weekend to go into that show and see it and go, oh, I want to do this in something that I do. Oh, I can understand this metaphor that he's worked in throughout the whole piece. And I just thought that was a really great show to have a group of writers go see because it was really, I mean, paired with Aladdin, which is such like a
Classic
classic
Broadway.
Broadway flashy
Yeah.
musical. It was really cool to be able to see the differences and kind of the peaks and valleys of all of the different levels that musicals can go through. And I just thought that was a really interesting perspective to go see it with.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like Maya said, like watching our song be performed, hearing it in the studio day, all of that is just gotta take the cake. But picking something else, this is, my answer's not as deep as yours. Mine's the nerdy answer. I liked the books. We got like a couple hours to go to the Broadway bookstore and we were given like a debit card of like, hey, you have like or a gift card and you're like, hey, you have this much money. Go buy whatever you want.
It was
And the
wonderful.
little book nerd in me went, I get to get whatever I want. And so I just like spent the whole time going, okay, what do I want? What do I need? And it was just like a mix of, oh, I want to get like the script for The Lightning Thief because little me wants that. And then it was also like, oh, I'm gonna get this book on like how they wrote Hadestown because we have like other ideas for musicals and stuff. And I was like, ooh, that might be helpful. And then I also I started writing one acts in high school. And so I was like, okay, let me get some good one acts. Let me get some like award-winning one acts that I can read and kind of like study up on and, see how like other writers write, their librettos and like their scripts and stuff. Because for us, that's like the kind of thing we've been pushing off for Less Than Perfect because we're like, the music's going to be the hardest thing.
Mhm.
But now we just haven't worked on the script yet. So it's like, that's another thing we've got to do. And so I was like, okay, all of these things, let's balance everything that I need and I want. And I just came home with stacks of books. And it was the greatest
It was
thing
wonderful.
my little bookworm heart could like ever imagine.
How exactly did you fit all those books in your carry-on?
So I traveled with my dad, and my dad doesn't pack much.
You
Um,
make him handle it.
yes, my suitcase was already full, and he had like he came and he was like already carrying some of my stuff, and so I just went here.
I just gotta say, shout out to your dad. I hung out with him during Winter's Weekend. He was so fun and he was so supportive of the two of you. And like, that's what you need in a parent. Just someone who's going to be like, you want to write musicals? Okay, go for it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. If anything, he's like, well, at least write me in.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's the
I
kind
can
of
see it.
Oh, yeah.
So you mentioned studio day. So on studio day, that was the first time that you got to hear orchestration. So how
Yes,
did that
yes.
feel to hear someone else kind of, yeah, sparkle farkle in your work?
Well, I'm gonna come back to the same word that I think every single person at the competition used because
Yeah.
it's the perfect way to describe it. It was one of the most surreal experiences I've ever had in my entire life. It was like it felt it just made it feel so like real because it's one thing for you to dream it up in your basement and go,
Yeah.
"Oh, we made this. It sounds cool." It's a whole other thing to go, "Wow, like professionals worked on this and it's like a real song." And it was just really emotional for both of
Yeah.
us.
One of my favorite pictures is the one of me just like smiling and Maya's like
Crying
sobbing.
my eyes out. Um, but it put a lot of things into perspective because it was like it almost felt just like a big step because we were like, oh, we won this competition thing. Oh, we're going to New York. And that all just didn't feel real. And that just felt like a
Mhm.
movie. But then we
Yeah.
got there and the songs being played for us that we like wrote and have kind of like acted out in our rooms. And it was just like, we're actually good at writing.
Yeah.
We were like, oh, we didn't just make it here by like some fairy godmother coming in and like waving her magic wand. We made it here because we like kind of did something cool. And it was
Yeah.
just as people who, I mean, I didn't know if I was going to go into theater at that point, but like I think it kind of helped me shift my perspective and think that I can do some form of theater professionally. And like as people who want to continue working on this, it was just very affirming and emotional to see something that we made be so like real and in front of us.
Yeah. And I think going back to something you said earlier, Teresa, you said, and you said this today, the day we got there too, you were like, oh yeah, yours was actually pretty easy to orchestrate because you like had all the bones there. All I had to do was like sparkle in it. And that I think was honestly one of the most affirming things we were able to hear on that entire trip was the fact that, oh, we did something right. Like we don't know what we're doing, but somewhere we do.
Mhm.
And so it wasn't like, oh, we just kind of like accidentally did this thing and somebody else fixed it and that's why it's good. It's no, we came in with the bones and there was just like a little bit of extra fine tuning. And so to go into that and hear it and know that most of that was ours and that it wasn't just some fairy godmother, like you said, came in and fixed it. It was like that it was ours and that we did that was just an incredible experience and it really went for both of us. And we've had so many like weird experiences where we'll like perform our songs in cabarets or like watch and then watch people perform it and we'll just look at each other and go, this feels like kind of like a flash forward into our future. This feels like, maybe we can actually do this and like this can be what we do. Maybe this isn't just a today thing. Maybe this is a future thing. And it was really cool to get that and have that experience and to feel like, you know, this isn't a one-time thing.
That's really beautiful. I love hearing that. And the two of you are very close to the characters, Jazz and Char. What was it like watching other performers embody those characters that you would act out in your basement and now you were seeing performed in New York?
Well, I will say like we were tentative about it at first,
Yeah.
but it it was really cool. Like I was nervous about it, but it made it feel more like an actual show and not just our little like kids project. Because it was, oh, other people can adopt these characters and they can understand like the depth of the meanings and everything because like it was cool. And our actors were like so similar to
Oh
us.
my
Like I don't
God.
think there literally could have been better
Mm-mm.
actors for those roles. Um, but it was cool because we'd have moments where one of them would be like, "Hey, is this what's happening here?" Or "I found a beat here. Does this work? Like if I do this on this beat?" And it was just really, I was like fangirling over our actors because they just got it and they got it
Mhm.
so fast. And that was partially just because they were very well like placed and they were so similar to us in a lot of ways. But it just made it feel very like professional that other people could take the roles and adopt them and be as enthusiastic and engage with them as we are.
Yeah, it was really cool to see them be like so authentic with it and not just authentic to themselves in it, but authentic to what we had originally had in mind as well. That it was like, okay, so this does transfer over, like people get this. Um, but like, I mean, I'll say this. One of the first things after we like were told we won and like Amanda sent out like the list of things of like, what you need or like we got like a list of like oh list three people that you would like to that you could see playing your characters and stuff. And one of the first things like I emailed her and I was like, "Can we play it?" And she was like, "I love this, but no." And I mean, she was so real for that and she was so right because it was so important for us to get that writer experience only. But it was we've been so attached to these characters and so like our first dream of it was for us to perform it eventually one day as Char and Jazz and then pass it on. But we wanted to be like the first. And so to have that not be us was it was a hard thing to let go of. But oh my gosh, it was so
It
cool
was
to
worth it.
see somebody else do it. And like Maya said, it made the whole thing so much more real that it could be done by somebody else.
Mhm.
It was like it doesn't just live in our heads, it can live on its own, was really nice
Mhm.
to see.
From your experience in the songwriting challenge, what's the one piece of advice you'd pass on to other young songwriters dreaming of this opportunity?
Oh, okay. So I there's a lot of things. I don't know if we're at liberty to give full advice, but I guess one of the best things that we could probably say to another songwriter is just be intentional. Intentionality is one of like the buzzwords that we've gotten over and over again throughout this process, and we still get today. And I think one of the biggest things we learned was it's so important to know like all of your plot points, your lyrics, your melodic lines, all the subtext, like what they are, where they came from, what they mean, and like how it plays in from before it even happens to where it goes and where it leads. It's like everything is so interconnected, and the more interconnected and the more intentional you are about it, the cooler and more impactful it's going to be.
Yeah, and I'd like to add on to that and say if you are very intentional with it, like it just helps it make it so much more you. And I think
Mhm.
a big part for us is making sure that regardless of the notes we get, regardless of who helps work on it, it's just you have to keep the music your own to some degree. And you have to be able to let go of some things because
Mhm.
some things might be bad and you are just attached to them for a
Yeah.
certain reason. But like you need to keep those core things that make the music yours because with all of those levels of intentionality, like it just adds a piece of you into the music and like even our scenes when we have specific
Yeah.
lines that we like, it just adds a piece of you into that is so cool to kind of incorporate and experience. And I think keeping all that intentionality and making sure that your music is your music and you will have your mark on it forever, no matter who performs it or
Mhm.
learns it or sings it in their car. I think that's really important.
Yeah, and with that, I will say it's like it's important with getting notes and critiques too, because there was one time where we showed one of our songs, and it's hard when you're showing your songs out of context and not fully in the context of the show. We
Yes.
showed one of our songs, and got some feedback that we didn't quite agree with. And so we got to talk to somebody about it. And he was like, this is my thought about this part. This is why I think that. And then we were able to go back and say, okay, I see where you're coming from now that like we know why you said that, but this is why we have this there. And he went, oh, okay, see, that makes sense in the context. So it's like, it's all about being intentional with it because sometimes people don't always have the context to know that it makes sense or that it is intentional. And so some of that will come with the show, which is just, it's an important thing to keep in mind of like knowing where it comes from, where it's going, why it's there.
Isabella, Maya, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us. And we also want to thank the National Endowment for the Arts, Concord Theatricals, Disney Theatrical Productions, and NMPA S.O.N.G.S Foundation for all of their support in making this program possible.
Yeah.
Of course, I also want to thank this week's lovely co-hosts for joining us today, Teresa and Joey. Thanks so much to the two of you. Teresa, tell us, what have you got coming up? What's up next for you?
That's a very good question. You should stay tuned to teresalotz.com for the answers to that. I've got approximately 20 something applications pending from different places. That's the way. Isabella, she's like, oh my gosh. That's the way. You send out hundreds of applications all the time. Rejection, rejection, rejection. But then you get the really cool opportunity, like coming to New York for a winter's weekend, and it's all worth it. So yeah, a lot of rewrites, a lot of rejections, hopefully winning something eventually, and living a good life and surviving, the important stuff.
Fantastic. Joey, yourself, what have you got in the pipeline?
Right now, I am working on a couple of shows, and one of those being In Pieces, which has been doing some really cool streaming numbers online and building a fan base and an audience. I think we just crossed about 35 million streams and views, which has been pretty wild. So we are currently working on getting that premiered at a regional theater. And then I'm also, of the other shows that I'm writing, I'm working on a really cool one that I'm very excited about, which is kind of blends what I love, which is thrillers and pop music.
Sounds awesome. Can't wait to hear more about it in the future. Isabella and Maya, you've already accomplished so much. Can you tell us and the listeners what's next for the two of you?
Ooh. Well, big picture wise, college.
Yeah, we know a thing or two about sending out lots of applications.
Yeah, we're both auditioning for musical theater colleges right now. So that is its own process, and we've had to put a lot of things on pause for that because, sadly, I have to prioritize that. But the next nearest big thing for our musical, I think, is us trying to get more totality in all of our music because we're trying to concert all of the music before we leave for college.
Yeah.
So hoping that happens. And then once we go to college, I think our biggest thing will be, we're still going to work on finishing it. I think with how much we've learned to collaborate, we'll be fine, even if we're not in the same location. Because, we're both busy people, so we've had to learn how to work with a crunch schedule and not always being together anyways. But so we're going to be working on finishing the musical because we hope to finish it before we leave college. Who knows? I believe in us.
Yeah.
But
something like that.
We're also from college going to be focusing on getting, more experience and new contacts and networking with people because, I feel like we've done a pretty good job and tried really hard to network now, but I think a big thing of us going to college is looking at who will give us new works opportunities, who will help get us connections, even if our major isn't necessarily writing, so that we can bring that to our work and any work we do in the future.
Yeah, and we'd love to go to college together for us and for our writing, but I also think, and we've talked about this, we think most likely, and also probably the best thing is I don't think we're going to go to college together. We may not even we
may be in different corners of the map.
We may be close, we may be on different sides of the country, but we're hoping, especially with not being in the exact same place, to get to have our own different life experiences and get our own different contacts so that after college, we can come back together and like move to New York or somewhere and
Combine all of it.
combine all of our things and go, okay, I have this list of contacts, you have this list of contacts.
I've learned
We
this,
need
you've learned
something.
this.
We
Like,
need something from someone. Who can we get it from in
Yeah.
like our list? And so hopefully like be able to combine all of those things to, better our writing, better us as people.
Yeah.
But until then, we're currently working on a website for Less Than Perfect. Along with we just had like a Halloween costume competition for our characters, and so we have like merch we're working on.
Yes, we have
So
stickers.
we do
Guys,
have
I'm going to show you these stickers. I drew one of them.
Drew both of them.
Yeah, I drew both of them. You helped with one of them.
Yeah.
We got, guys, ignore all of the other stickers. We have the logo, which is really cute.
Yeah.
Less Than Perfect. And then we have an inside joke that all of our Instagram people know about now. Because my character, Shar, had a goat named Benjamin. And we told
in like the early drafts when like we
Yes.
wrote it at the Holy Waterside Characters thing.
But we told
Yeah.
Instagram about that and they went wild. So I made a sticker for it. And there he is.
We
And
have
he is so
Benjamin.
cute. And I love him.
I request one, please. Thank you.
We have like
Yes.
100. Don't worry.
I just mass ordered them. But yeah, so we have our website we're working on. We have merch that we're working on getting like up and running. And Less Than Perfect before that is also on social media. So we're on like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. And we're on there. Our handles like at Less Than Perfect the Musical, or sometimes it's just at Less Than Perfect Musical, depending on which one it's on. But you can follow us, you can keep up with our stuff. We have series about like a more in-depth of how the show got started, play by play. We're kind of working on that. We just had some Q&A that we've been working on getting finished with. That's where we're dropping clips of like all the new songs that like no one else has heard before. So yeah, that's where a lot of the musical stuff is happening. So if you want to hear more, you can go there.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Congratulations to the both of you. I can't wait to interview you again a little bit farther in the future once the show gets on its feet and you have a little bit more to talk about. And the nice thing is, you know what? Even though you might be going to colleges a distance away, geographically, it can be far, but technology brings that down to a single click, right? So you'll be able to work together, and I look forward to seeing where you guys go in the future together. Congratulations.
You?
All right. That's all for today's interview. I want to thank everybody so much for coming on and talking to us today. Once again, I am your host, Jean-Paul Yovanoff, and on behalf of NAMT and MTR, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in the theater.